Are you sick and tired of it costing a fortune just for your family to eat dinner? Whether you're eating out, you're ordering out, or you're cooking at home, it just seems impossible to stick with the budget unless you have a plan. As a mom and a food blogger, I totally feel your pain. I'm always trying to save money on groceries because I have to test so many recipes every single week to share them with you. Today we're making 3 ground beef recipes that are super easy to make, they're absolutely delicious, and they're great for you're on a budget. So let's get started. We're kicking things off with our cheeseburger bowls. These are low carb, they're absolutely delicious, they're packed with protein from the seasoned beef, and we're also making this adobo sauce that's gonna drizzle on the top. It's just a little bit spicy and it's the perfect finishing touch. This recipe takes under 30 minutes to make and it's so yummy. My kids love this one because it's a lot like taco night. You can just add all your favorite toppings at the end. The pickles might seem a little bit weird, but I promise it's really good. So let's make it. For the adobo sauce, we're gonna start with some Hellmann's mayo, or you can use the Duke's, it's totally fine. Add that into a bowl. We're gonna also add a tablespoon of ranch seasoning mix, then just give this a whisk. Next up, we're adding chipotle peppers and adobo sauce, but we're only using the adobo sauce. We're not using the spicy peppers. We're gonna add in a little bit of milk too, just to make it nice and smooth. Whisk this up. We're gonna stick this right into the fridge until we are ready to serve our cheeseburger bowls. Next up, we're gonna cook our ground beef. You can use an 85-15 or a 93-7 if you want less fat. You're just gonna break this up until it's no longer pink. We're gonna add in some spices. You can also just do some taco seasoning if you don't have a whole bunch of spices on hand. And then after that's all brown, just go ahead and turn off the stovetop. We're gonna chop up our toppings. We've got cheese, tomato, we've got some lettuce. I like using romaine hearts for this. Pickles, which sounds weird, but I promise it's good. We also have some avocado and some red onion that I like to slice really thin. Then I just like to organize this on a platter like it's taco night. Everybody can just load their own bowls up, and don't forget about the adobo sauce because it's so good. Do not forget it. It's my favorite part of the whole recipe. You guys will love this one. That's it, we're all done with these cheeseburger bowls. These are so delicious. I know your whole family will love this one just like mine did. Next up, we're making this delicious meatloaf. This is cozy comfort food. We're only making a 1-pound meatloaf, which is perfect for like a family of 4. You're not like overdoing it and having a ton of leftovers. It's just the perfect little recipe to whip up, and it is so yummy. This is moist, and I'm sharing all my secrets with you, so let's do it. The first thing with meatloaf, we wanna get started by chopping up our onion and our garlic really fine. We want these minced, almost like if you've ever made a Hawaiian macaroni salad, you're like grating the onions. You want it thin like that, because the worst thing about meatloaf is when you bite into it and you get like a crunch of onion. Nobody wants that. So you want to mince up the onion and garlic really nice and fine. We're also going to mince up some parsley just really fine too, and we're going to sprinkle that at the end just to add a little bit of color and freshness. Okay, next up, this might sound a little bit weird, but one of my favorite things to do for meatloaf and meatballs is to add a little bit of sandwich bread into some milk. This really keeps the meatloaf super juicy and moist. It's absolutely incredible. So what I'm gonna do is just take a 1/4 cup of whole milk, and then I just have a regular piece of white sandwich bread. This is like Nature's Own, I think, and I also like the Italian kind. I'm using the crust too, and I'm just gonna like shred it up a little bit and just leave it in my milk to soak for a few minutes. I wanna make sure that the bread is completely covered. You can just do a little toss too, like this. And we're just gonna let that soak for just a second when we get our ingredients mixed up. This meatloaf recipe comes together really quickly. Before we move any further, we're gonna go ahead and preheat our oven to 350 degrees. I'm gonna be using a bread pan to go ahead and make my meatloaf. You can also just put this onto a cookie sheet, but you wanna make sure it's lined with some parchment paper. I've actually ripped the piece off like this, and then I'm gonna stick it in here because I want those edges to stick over like that. That way it's super easy to remove after it's done baking. For the ground beef, you want to use either an 85-15 or an 80-20. That's going to give you enough fat content to keep it really nice and juicy. If you use a 93-7, it's going to get a little bit dried out. I understand it's a little bit healthier, but you know. All right, we are going to use 16 ounces, just 1 pound of beef, and we're going to dump this right into our bowl. The rest of the ingredients, we have some salt, pepper, and garlic powder. We have an egg. Next up, we're gonna add in our onion and our garlic. Like I said, make sure this is really nice and minced. Then we've got our Worcestershire sauce, our little soggy breads. I just give this a little bit of a pinch just to break it up a little bit, and then you can just dump it right back in. And then we've got our breadcrumbs. These are just Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. Once we get that all in there, we are just gonna give this a good mash up, get all those ingredients combined. You can definitely wear gloves too. Whenever me and my husband first got married, and we had our daughter too, she was a surprise. But when we got married, he was working, I had a baby, we just did not have a lot of money, and we lived off of ground beef recipes. We also make ground chicken and ground turkey once in a while, but he always liked ground beef better because it's a little bit more fatty. So I feel like I have a million of these recipes up my sleeve. I just got so used to cooking it all the time because it was the only thing we could afford. We were constantly hitting up Walmart for ground beef. And I know a lot of people still are like that. Everything is really expensive at the stores right now, for sure. It makes really good cozy comfort meals. This recipe and our next one are great comfort foods. I love serving this up with some mashed potatoes, so yummy. We're also gonna be making a sauce too, but I'm actually gonna bake it without the sauce and then just brush it on at the very end. I feel like it's kind of crispy when you add it on, so I like to just heat it up separate. We can bake it for a few minutes at the end with it on there. Okay, so right now, this is looking fabulous. We're gonna pop it right into our bread pan. And I like to keep it kind of thick. I'm not gonna spread it out on the whole thing because it's a smaller loaf. And I still want it to be nice and thick when I pull it out. This is just a cute little family of 4 yummy little meatloaf dinner. Okay, we're gonna be popping this into our 350-degree oven. I always like to use my internal thermometer. This just makes it cooking so much easier. You won't overcook things anymore. This is a Thermapen and highly recommend. There's also really cheap versions on Amazon that work good. While our meatloaf is baking, we're gonna get ready for our meatloaf glaze. This is just that classic recipe. We've got ketchup, we have some brown sugar, we've got a little bit of vinegar. You can use distilled vinegar or apple cider vinegar is fine. And then we've got some honey and our Worcestershire sauce. I say it different every single time. We just need a teaspoon of it. Stir this up. We're gonna just put it on low heat and just simmer it for about 10 minutes or so. Then once our meatloaf is about 150 degrees, we're gonna go ahead and pull that meatloaf out of the oven. We wanna brush it really thick with our sauce, and then we're gonna pop it back in for about 5 to 10 minutes until it reads 160. Once that temperature reaches 160 or 165 degrees, I like to go ahead and pull it out of the oven. I'm gonna transfer mine to a cutting board because it holds a lot of fat in that actual bread pan. And I just tent it with foil for a few minutes before I go ahead and slice it up, top it with my parsley. That's it, we're all done with this delicious 1-pound meatloaf. This is such an easy recipe for the family. I hope you guys make it. Next up, we are making a casserole fit for a cowboy. This is literally called Cowboy Casserole, and it's basically like chili meets cornbread. It has a layer on the bottom of meat and beans with tomatoes and corn. It's so good, and the top is topped off with some Jiffy cornbread. This is a super simple recipe, and it uses a ton of pantry ingredients. I know you guys are gonna love this one, so let's get cooking. For our Cowboy Casserole, we're starting off by just dicing an onion. We also have a bell pepper that we're gonna dice up. You can use any color here, green, red, yellow, orange, whatever one's your favorite. Just give it a good dice. We also have a garlic clove that we're gonna mince up. Next, we're gonna get a skillet started over medium heat. We wanna go ahead and saute our onions and peppers until they're nice and softened. Then we're gonna add in our ground beef, and you can use 85-15, 80-20, or 93-7 for this. Just go ahead and break it up until it's no longer pink. And then we're gonna add in our spices and some garlic. This is gonna give it lots of flavor. Next up, we're gonna add in our diced tomatoes with the juices. We have some corn that we've drained. It's okay if there's a little bit left. And then we have black beans that are rinsed and drained. Go ahead and stir that up. This is gonna be the bottom of our casserole dish. We wanna make sure that we use a slotted spoon to go ahead and load that casserole so that we keep all the fat and a lot of the juices in our skillet still. We're not gonna use those. Next up, we're gonna preheat our oven to 400 degrees, and then we're gonna get our cornbread mix ready. So we're just gonna use 2 boxes of Jiffy. We're gonna add in our whole milk. And then we have just a couple eggs, and then I just use a wooden spoon just to stir this up till it's all combined. And then we're gonna pour it right over the top of our casserole. I like to use a spoon and just kind of spread it around a little bit, but it doesn't have to be like too crazy. It doesn't need to be perfect. Then this is ready to go into the oven. This is gonna bake for about 20 to 25 minutes until that cornbread topping is all the way cooked. Then you can just slice it up and enjoy. That's it. We made it through all 3 of our ground beef recipes. I hope you guys love these dinner ideas. Let me know in the comments below which one you were thinking about making. They're all so yummy. I know you won't make a bad decision. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like and make sure to subscribe for new recipes every single week. I love sharing them with you. All of my recipes are really well tested and I try and make them as quick and easy as possible to save you guys time in the kitchen. Thanks so much for being here and I'll see you next time. Bye.